Hello everyone, and welcome to the deep dive webinar today with a focus on workflows and the enhancements we have recently made. First, I want to thank everyone for joining. Appreciate you spending some time with us, and I feel confident that everyone's going to be very excited with what they see today, so I'm excited about that. My name is Randy Blatt. I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Jazz, and I'll be kind of walking everybody through things today. I'm also joined here by John Volpe. I'll introduce him here in just a second. So quick housekeeping, we do this on every webinar. Keep in mind that this is going to be recorded, and following the webinar, everyone is going to get a copy of the slides and the recording. Please use the chat box for questions. You can ask your questions at any time. We will answer some questions on the fly, but we will be conducting a Q&A session at the end of the call today. Please ask questions. Don't hesitate. We like to try to keep it very interactive. If you see something you like and you want to kind of share it out, you can use you can tweet at jazz.co using the hashtag Automagical. We're pretty excited about that hashtag today, so you're going to hear that a couple of times as we go along. So as I mentioned, my name is Randy Blatt. I'm a Customer Success Manager here with Jazz, and I'm sure many of you have heard my voice before. Some fun facts about me. I recently found out about the talking heads, and I'm obsessed with them, so that's exciting. I love golfing, and unfortunately won't be doing much more of that this year, and I can't stop telling people about the new e-signature feature, which I love. I'm joined here today by John Volpe. He is our product manager here at Jazz. Some fun facts about him. He has a giant dog, and I can confirm it is a very large dog. It's a Cane Corso named Dino, and he's pretty awesome. He has a real-life man bun, everyone. It's pretty impressive. If you want a picture of it, just let us know. We can get you one. And he lives in joggers, which I don't understand, but I'm not a fashionista. So, John, you want to say hello?
Hi, guys. Thanks, Randy.
You're very welcome. All right, excellent. So we're going to dive in. Here's the agenda. We're going to take a look at the new workflows overview, the changes that have been made, show you, the meaning behind all of the changes that we made and how it's going to make things a lot easier for you and your hiring team. Again, taking a look at the templates that you can utilize moving forward and how you can kind of decouple them between job and admin template, which John is going to talk about here in just a minute. We'll review workflow helpers and also talk about some new workflow helpers that can be added. And at the end, we will talk about tips and best practices for using the new workflows function within Jazz. We'll do some FAQs. We'll talk resources, and again, Q&A session at the end of the call today. So John, what day is it?
Hump day.
It's hump day. Excellent. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. John Volpe, and he's going to go ahead and walk through the updates. Go ahead, John.
All right, great. Thanks, Randy. So guys, really excited about this update. As you know, if you've been using Jazz, workflows is kind of the heartbeat for how Jazz runs. It's essentially how you map your hiring process to Jazz recruiting platform. So as we kind of walk through this, keep that in mind, that workflows helps with two big functions inside of Jazz. One would be organization, and two is automation of your recruiting process. Now there are some things that I'm going to be going through here that are very plan specific. So depending on what plan you have with Jazz, you may or may not have some of these features. I will make sure that I point those out as we go. So some of the overviews that we'll be going over today. First, some administrative updates. Currently in Jazz, there was some unclarity on what your default workflow was, how to manage your workflows. So we feel like we really cleaned that up, adding some action menus there, also adding this concept of archiving, which I'll talk more about. Next, we've really standardized how we look at stages versus dispositions. And probably the biggest update that's coming out of this launch is being able to lock templates to the jobs. Again, that's really going to help you on the administrative side of things and future reporting aspects of Jazz. So I'll definitely dive into that and talk about how that will affect your account and how it will kind of make your lives easier moving forward. After that, we'll dive into some additional workflow helpers that can be added, and actually the way that they can be added. There's two different ways to add them now. And again, making your process more customizable, but really automating things on the recruiting side. That's the main goal of workflow helpers. And then, like I mentioned before, we are introducing kind of this locking between workflow templates and jobs, but at the same time, we are going to allow you to keep the current customization of, allowing you to decouple jobs from workflows if you really want to get targeted on customization. Again, I'll go over that more in detail. And then we've added the new stage at the workflow level. So I'll go into this, but it really helps you automate some triggers to candidates and be, again, more target customization around that new stage, which we're actually really excited about. So I'll go in there as well. Okay, so what's being changed in the template? Now, throughout this slide, I'll kind of be touching on a few bullet points. We'll actually dive into the app and go through it, come back and dive into bullet points, and keep going that route until we're kind of, we've touched all the aspects of this feature. So this first part is, again, centrally managing the workflows. We made some streamlined efforts to make that easier. So again, being able to see where workflows are being used, see which one's default, allowing you to clone workflows, other updates that I'll go into when we actually get in the app as well. Some other things that we'll be going through, again, archiving and unarchiving. It allows you to be able to report off of old jobs and old workflows, but still not have them in your view whenever you're trying to make updates to move forward. But you never really want to lose that kind of history of where your candidates came from and what status that they were in. So we've kind of added this concept of archiving. And then for you all that have been with Jazz for a long time, you might have something still called a legacy workflow. Right now, those are uneditable, can't be reordered, you can't add stages. So we wanted to kind of unlock those, and now you're going to be able to edit those just like a normal workflow. So that's a big stride for some of the legacy customers. Again, if you don't see a legacy workflow in your account, this doesn't affect you, but pretty much if you were here in 2014 or prior, you will have that, and we wanted to make sure that that now functions like all the new workflows. So let's go ahead and dive into the app and walk through this. And again, please keep your questions coming. If you have any questions, chat them over. We will be happy to kind of answer them as we go, or kind of like Randy mentioned, get to them at the end of the call. Okay, great. So here we're going to start on the launch page, and the first section I want to dive into is in the admin area of the app. Again, this is where we've made one of the most changes to the workflows feature. One quick one, we're just naming it hiring workflows as opposed to workflows. You'll kind of notice that now. We really try to explain the concept of workflows as much as possible. So you'll see a lot of the Sherpa and help text kind of throughout the process here, highlighting what a workflow is, what workflow helpers are, and not necessarily just what they are, but kind of the value prop and why you would think about using them. So feel free to take that in kind of as you're navigating through these screens. The first big update that you'll see is just noticing which one is the default. We didn't really show this too well in the prior version, so just highlighting which one's your default. Again, all the default means is whenever you're creating a job, that's the first one that's selected. Of course, being able to choose from any of the unarchived workflows in that option. We've also added some tools here just to quickly edit or to kind of clone or make another workflow the default, so you can see that in these options. You can also rename or archive from this option as well. Again, archiving will remove it from the view whenever you're creating a job, but again, won't delete it, so you'll still have all that historical information about your candidates. One other thing that you'll see on this page, so now that we've kind of locked workflows to the job, which that's kind of what I want to explain right now, you'll see that on the template what jobs are actually using this particular workflow. So if you have 10 jobs using this, those 10 jobs will be listed in here. And you actually have quick links to open those jobs. So I'm actually going to open this job into a new tab. And I'm going to go into edit this job and into the hiring workflow for this particular position. Now this is where I wanted to mention, you see that right now through a job it's not locked to the template by default. So one of the problems that we're solving is being able to easily update this workflow at the template level, and any changes will replicate on any job using that template. So for example, if I come into this engineering workflow and say I add a stage, which would be maybe a second interview, and I reorder that. Now if I come back into this product manager position and refresh, you'll notice that that change gets made onto the job. So right now, that functionality doesn't exist where those are coupled together. Right now, if you make changes to the template, it won't affect the job and vice versa. So again, allowing you to do that will save you a lot of time whenever you do want to mass edit jobs, but also just keeping consistency between how you hire candidates. Again, you know, Jazz is really nice because we allow you to create custom workflows for how you want to bring candidates through your recruiting process. But keep in mind, if you want to keep it consistent, I would suggest having as little hiring workflows as possible. In a lot of cases, you're going to bring candidates through the same process regardless of the type of position that they're hiring for. But in the cases where it is pretty different, an example could be a sales type of position versus an engineering type of position. You know, for engineers, you might add an extra interview stage or a technical assessment. So it probably does warrant its own workflow template. But my suggestion and one of the tips on our side is to keep this as streamlined as possible. You'll kind of thank yourself on the administrative side later, and then we plan on coming out with reports down the road that'll really help you to report off of jobs that share the same workflow. So just keep that in mind whenever you're first setting up your account, or now that moving forward you start to set up the workflows in this way. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead back to the slide and go on to our next series of bullets. So here we're going to talk about workflow helpers, and this is also where we're going to dive a little bit more in on the difference between a job template, a job workflow and a templated workflow. So workflow helpers by default are going to be locked to the master template, which I'll show you, and I think it'll make more sense whenever we talk through it in the app. But you can also automate. So another thing that we've added is a new type of helper, which is being able to associate questionnaires with a workflow stage, which is going to be really powerful. I'll show you some examples, but essentially our questionnaires feature can now be automatically sent to candidates through a workflow helper. And then the last piece to this is allowing you to add helpers to the new stage. So you might have noticed that in viewing the app that there's this new stage in your account now, and this is where you can tie automated reply to candidates. A really good example would be if you wanted a candidate every time that they applied to fill out a questionnaire, you can now set that up as a workflow helper on the new stage that will automatically go out to any candidates that apply. There is one caveat there that I want to just make sure everybody understands. The new stage and the triggers, the workflow helpers within the new stage, will only trigger to candidates that have applied to the position. So in the exception of manual uploads and manual imports and importing through our API, those triggers will not get sent. It will only be for people that are applying through the hosted career page or one of the widgets on your, that you've embedded on your careers page. So let's go ahead and dive in a little bit more to the workflow helper aspect of this update. So I'm going to start here on the job because I want to point out something pretty significant. Again, we are now locking the workflow to the job by default. So you can see that this is locked, so this cannot be edited. You'll notice too that you cannot reorder these stages, you cannot add new stages, again, because it's locked to the template. Now, as the admin of an account or the hiring manager of the job, you do have an option to unlock from the template. Now, we definitely suggest that you don't do this. Again, it breaks it from the template, so if you want to go back in and edit this workflow, you will have to do it on a per job basis because it's unlocked. And then again, for future reporting purposes, you'll want to keep these locked so you can report consistently across all your jobs. So we kind of give you a little bit of warning here that you don't necessarily want to unlock it. You won't have to worry about any of your users actually unlocking it. Again, it's just for admins and that one hiring manager for each position. Now, because this is locked, again, you can see the workflow helpers that are locked to the actual template. Now, what we wanted to do was still give you a level of customization at the job for workflow helpers. A really good example is, so I have this engineering workflow, and I have 5 stages here: screen, interview, I have a second interview, consider an offer. And I have this phone screen, which I give every candidate regardless of the position. But for this specific engineering job, I want to conduct an interview specific to this position. So in this case, I can actually add an interview helper directly to this position. Again, you can kind of see that it's a little different because I can delete it and I can edit this helper, and that's because it's not tied to the template. So again, if I come back into this admin hiring workflows and I come into this template in this area, I will not see that workflow helper because it is just unique to the job. So there is a level of customization there, and part of the reason why, we suggest not having a lot of different workflows or using the same workflow, because it's often the types of interviews or the types of emails that you send out that really make the hiring process different. We're hoping that the stages can stay consistent between as many jobs as possible, again, helping you on the administrative side and future reporting efforts. Next, with workflow helpers, I want to talk about the new questionnaire helper. And a really good example of utilizing the questionnaire helper is on the new stage. So oftentimes you want to make the application for a job as simple as possible to increase the amount of candidates that apply to the position. But there's also this second piece that you really want to make sure they're qualified. So adding a questionnaire to the new stage can kind of give you the best of both worlds. So you can keep the application very simple, and then you'll be able to add a questionnaire to the new stage. And we've also implemented a customizable email template that you can add. So if you do go back into admin area under emails, you can create specific emails for questionnaires. and then you can tie those templates to this questionnaire. So every time this questionnaire gets sent out, it will be sent with that message and then a link to complete the questionnaire. So for example, every time somebody applies, they'll get a invitation to complete a questionnaire. Once that questionnaire is completed, you then will see that in that candidate's account. Now, again, these questionnaire helpers can be added to any stage, not just a new stage. So if you did want to add to an interview stage or maybe a pre-screening stage, you can. You can even add it to a not hired stage. If you're looking to get some feedback about your recruiting process, feel free to create an exit questionnaire and associate that to a not hired position. There's really a lot of things that you can do with this new questionnaire helper. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you here is the concept of unlocking a job from a template. So you'll see the scenario I have here that this is all locked because I can't reorder anything, I can't add new stages. However, if I do unlock this from the template, it'll essentially function how it does today. It clones the current version of what you had in the workflow to the job, but now any edits made on the job is independent from the template. So I can now come in and delete this phone screen if I would like to. Or I can add another stage. Or I can even delete maybe this second interview now. And again, this will only affect this one position. So you still get that targeted kind of level of customization if you want on a per job basis. Again, we kind of suggest not doing that, but we definitely know that in some cases it creates a lot of value to do that. Now the last thing I want to mention about workflow helpers is this automated reply to candidates. So to best explain this, I want to talk about how Jazz currently works up until we made this update. So I'm going to come out of workflow templates, I'm going to go to emails, and I'm going to go to automated reply to candidates. And some of you may have noticed this in your account, you may not have. It might have been just set up by default and you kind of ran with it. But essentially, we have this toggle in here that enables automated replies to candidates. So every time a candidate applies, they receive this email, which sounds a lot like adding helpers to the new stage now in workflows. So essentially what we've done is this was at an account level, which meant if you turn this on, every single candidate that applied, regardless of what job, would get this message above. Now we've added an extra level of customization to this, which if this is enabled, you'll notice that on each job and on each workflow, so let me also pull up a workflow here. So on each job and on each workflow, you'll see this automated reply to candidates workflow helper appear. And again, that is going to be managed by this toggle in the email settings under automated reply to candidates. Now, the flexibility that we've given you here is on a job that is unlocked. So the example here is I want to have a specific automated reply to candidates for this product manager position. I can come in and I can edit this automated reply to candidates. I can select a new template or I can create a new one. I can use placeholder tokens, I can attach files, I can even send a test just like I normally would. Again, this is a new update. In the past, you have not been able to create emails within the context of a workflow helper. So that's just one other thing that we've added during this release. Because it's an automated reply to candidates, it has to go to the candidate, so we kind of gray out the recipients there. And then once you save that, you'll notice that the helper doesn't actually change, but the email template that you've selected is shown here. Now, again, this is for an unlocked job, so I can customize it on a per job basis. Now, If I wanted to affect all the sales positions, again, I can edit this template here, and it will affect all the sales positions, or in this case, just this one B2B sales representative job. But you can see that you can customize it both at the workflow level or the job level if the job is unlocked from the template. Great, so we're going to go ahead back into our slideshow. And just some tips and best practices. We're going to get into some frequently asked questions here in a second. I see a lot of people typing in questions, which is great. We're going to try to get to some of those at the end of the webinar today. But just some tips and practices, tips and best practices. I mentioned some of these along the way. Again, the biggest one is unlocking a template. Again, it is, unlocking a job from a workflow template. Again, it's convenient, and you can definitely do it, but not recommended. Only in some rare cases should you have a job that deviates from your standard recruiting process. So try to come up with a few solid recruiting or hiring workflow templates that replicate to almost all of your jobs. And for those rare instances, we did add the ability to unlock jobs from the workflow if needed. The next piece, with automation, you can kind of set it on your workflows and forget it, and you may never come back to that. Our suggestion is, please, try to go back in and update those and optimize them, especially with this new release, having this new stage, having new workflow helpers. This is a really good time to jump back into your account, see where you can start automating things that people may be doing manually, that hiring managers or HR managers or you as a recruiter might be doing manually, but now can be automated through some of these updates. So feel free to go back, do an audit of some of your workflow templates, get those right, because moving forward, you're now going to be able to, on an administrative side, manage them at the template level as opposed to each individual job. Which, to kind of piggyback off of that, one thing I do want to mention is currently in Jazz, you will have, your jobs will not be associated to templates. So moving forward, as you cycle through your positions is where you're going to be able to benefit off of this. So kind of day one, there's not going to be a lot of these updates won't affect you outside of some of the new things like the new stages, the automated reply to candidates, and the new questionnaire helper. But the true locking and unlocking from the template won't actually come into effect until you start to create new jobs and cycle through the jobs in your account. So again, a perfect time to make sure that you have those templates optimized for organization and automation on your side. And the last piece here is you're now able to edit questionnaires, email messages, interviews, tasks. All of them are now editable and customizable within the context of a helper. So instead of having to delete them and re-add them, again, another reason why it's a perfect time to go back through and make sure that you have all of the right helpers and stages set up. We've now kind of added the consistency of being able to edit everything all within the context of those helpers.
Awesome, John. I'm going to jump in and take over here. Thank you so much for walking us through that. We've gotten some great feedback, some great questions that have come over, so hopefully we'll get some of those questions answered here with these FAQs. If not, we can touch on those at the end. But yeah, this is very exciting. It sounds like a lot of positive feedback so far. So John, you might want to jump into the application, and then I can just ask these questions, and you can paint a clear picture with the app if you'd like to do that.
Sure.
So first question, if I unlock a workflow, is it possible to revert back to the original master template?
Great question. So the answer to that is no. And that's why we really don't recommend unlocking the job. So you'll notice that this product manager position that I've unlocked there's no way to reassociate it with that template. So if I come back into here, into my admin hiring workflows templates area, you'll notice that this engineering workflow is no longer used by this job. So once you unlock the job from the template, there is no way to revert it back to using this engineering workflow.
So use caution.
Yes.
Yes. Excellent. So how long will my archived workflows remain archived?
Good question. Indefinitely. You know, the reason why we've introduced archiving is so you always have that historical reporting there, and you don't ever delete a workflow that, you know, maybe 1,000 candidates have went through, and now you have no context of how they got to a not hired or hired stage. So if it's archived, it'll be archived for as long as you have the account. You can always unarchive too. So if you want to bring a workflow back that you had and it was working really well, you can always unarchive it, and then it becomes available for use.
Excellent. Thank you. How many master templates can I have?
Unlimited. Again, you can create as many hiring workflow templates as you need. Piece of advice though, and as far as best practices, the less of these the better, because it makes it a more consistent hiring process for everyone. Again, in those cases where it can be very different for the types of positions you're hiring. That's why we allow you to create multiple hiring workflows. But keeping these kind of short and sweet and simple is one key to success.
Excellent. I believe you touched on this earlier, but who can unlock and lock workflows within Jazz?
Good question. Administrators and hiring managers or hiring leads of jobs are the only two types of people that can unlock a job. Now, only admins can edit the template, the actual hiring workflow template. So hiring managers, admins can unlock, and only admins can actually edit the template.
Excellent. That makes sense. Thank you. If I don't have this feature, what plans can use these enhancements? And if I don't have this feature, who can I contact to add it?
Good question. And I made a promise that I would kind of tell you that along the way, and I didn't. So I'm really glad, Randy, you asked that question. Essentially, so the whole coupling and unlocking of workflows is standard throughout Jazz. All plans will have this template relationship by default and the ability to unlock from the template. Where it gets different is at the workflow helper level. So only the Plus plan, the Pro plan, and anybody with an ATS bundle will have access to workflow helpers. So the questionnaire helper, any of the helpers, tasks, emails, interviews, questionnaires, will only be for those plans. So pretty much if you have Jazz Post and you have not added on the ATS bundle, you do not have the ability to add workflow helpers. You also can only have one workflow in your account. Again, you can kind of customize that and change the stages and reorder the stages, but you will not be able to have workflow helpers on the Post plan.
Gotcha. And if you are interested in adding these workflow helpers, feel free to reach out to us directly. Our support team would be your best point of contact for that. support@jazz.co. We're happy to get you some more information on getting that added. So just kind of plug in that there. All right, excellent. So, John, we've had a number of questions come in, and I think one trend seems to be a little bit of folks asking for some clarity on the existing positions they have open currently within Jazz and what's going to happen, how they'll be affected by this workflows update. Does that make sense? Can you shed some more light on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So a really good example is here's an account where this is both pre and post launch of this workflows update. So this DeLorean technician is a perfect example of what a lot of your jobs will look like in your Jazz account today. So if I come into this position, into the hiring workflow, you really won't have any changes here. Again, you'll have some style changes, and you'll be able to see the new stage now. You'll be able to customize this automated reply for just this job. But really, you won't have any updates at this point. It's pretty much as though you unlocked this job from the template, and you're kind of off and running. The change for you will happen whenever you create new jobs. So an example would be, I'm going to go ahead and create a new engineering position. So maybe we're hiring an Android engineer. And I'm going to use my engineering workflow. Again, you have this preview here. One minor update to this screen here is we've shown workflow helpers here, which we haven't in the past. Again, this just helps you kind of review the workflow before you actually select one. Once you've selected a workflow and you actually create this position, this is where it changes for you. So if you are 100% comfortable where you're at in the current process and you love the way that this workflow tool functions in Jazz, feel free to come in here and unlock this job from the template. Unlocking it from the template is essentially the way that it functions today. But by default, we will couple it to the engineering workflow. So then you can, again, on the administrative side, edit this engineering workflow to affect all of the jobs. So that's really where the difference comes into play. It's not really affecting your existing positions. It's whenever you start to turn over those positions and create new jobs is whenever this new kind of locking and unlocking mechanism starts to show up.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think that clarifies some questions that have come up. Let's see what else we have here. So we got a question about more examples of automating emails. Like possibly, can you just walk through a quick example of automating a rejection email and how that would look?
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing you would want to do is we're gonna come back into admin, templates, and emails. So this first starts out with creating the emails that you need for your workflow helpers. Again, you can create them in the concept of a workflow. I just wanted to point out that we do have an area in the app where you manage all of your emails, where you create your emails. We have some system defaults in there, like a rejection letter and this automated reply to candidates. Feel free to come in here and edit these, use these as your templates, or create a brand new email. Now, some suggestions that I'll have here is, let me come back into a hiring workflow, and we'll go into our standard workflow here. And let me just delete this one that we have here. So I'll give two suggestions of how to use workflow helper emails. One suggestion would be during the screen stage, or really any time where you're going to schedule a phone screen or an interview. That's one of the most difficult parts in the recruiting process, is getting everybody on the same page, making sure rooms are available. Really scheduling interviews and phone screens is a very difficult and timely part of the recruiting process. So one minor thing that can really help is kind of automating the start of that scheduling process. So one way to do that would be during a phone screen stage. So anytime I move a candidate from new into screen, I want to add an email helper, and that's going to be a request for phone screen. And it's essentially going to be worded, hey, let me know some time that you're available for a phone screen. Again, you can add to this as much as you want, and you can have that go out to a candidate. Once I add that email, it'll appear here. So again, candidate gets moved into that stage, they automatically get an email, and they can send back some times for a phone screen. Just one less step for you to manually send that email. The second example I want to go through is the regret letter. This is probably the biggest time saver. Unfortunately, a small percentage of candidates are usually qualified, so you're going to end up rejecting a lot more candidates, and again, unfortunate, but could be a real time saver if you're able to automate this regret letter. So in this scenario, I've associated a regret letter to this not hired stage. Every time I put a candidate in there, it'll send this letter out. Now, you may have different types of regret letters. You could have different stages in here for not hired, post-interview, or not qualified or overqualified. And now you can start to set up different regret letters or rejection letters for those particular stages and reasons why you did not hire someone.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. I think that's going to help answer a few questions here as well. So a couple more came in about cloning and what that looks like. Do you mind just walking through the job clone process and how you are able to select and edit your workflows from that point?
Definitely. So we'll take this engineering workflow as an example. So first I just want to show you what this looks like. You have the automated reply to candidate helper. You have a conduct interview helper here as well. And then we have 5 stages, and then 2 hired and 1 not hired disposition. So if we come back and say we're going to make a product workflow. So similar to engineering, we take them through a similar process, but maybe we add 1 stage or remove 1 stage. So we want to clone this and make some minor tweaks. So if we come into the drop-down menu here and we hit clone, you'll notice that if you hit clone, it just says engineering workflow copy, similar to Google Docs or pretty much any document type software. So you can come in here and say, okay, this is now my product workflow, clone that. It then brings you right into the edit state of that workflow. So you can come in and maybe I want to remove this second interview, and I also maybe want to add a not hired stage. So again, this is now a separate template that you can customize on your own, but cloning a template is pretty simple.
Let's expand on that further. I'm all about the word clone right now. How about when you clone a job?
Really good question. So let's go ahead into jobs and let's talk about 2 scenarios where you might be cloning a job. The first scenario that I want to take you through is that Android engineer that we just created. So I'm going to come in here and I want to just first show you the workflow. This is a scenario where the job has a workflow template associated to this job. So let's go ahead back into this job and let's go ahead and clone this position. So you'll notice whenever you're cloning the position, you could do one of 2 things. Well, obviously you can edit this job and make some tweaks to any of the job details, but as far as the workflow goes, you have the option to use the current workflow, which is the engineering workflow, or select a new one. So maybe I want to clone this, and this is going to be, you know, my agile project manager, or maybe just a product manager. And you can come in, create and publish job, and at this point I have changed the workflow that this job uses. So you have that option when cloning to either keep the template that I was connected to or to associate a new template. Now, let's go back into that product manager position that I created that was not locked to the template. So this was a scenario where I had unlocked, So this was a scenario where I had unlocked the job from the template. So let's go ahead and clone this position. Again, at this point, I could keep the current workflow. So there were some tweaks made to that workflow on this job. I can clone that right over to this position. Or I can select a brand new workflow. So you'll notice that this is not my engineering or my product workflow. It is literally going to mirror that workflow for that unlocked job. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to create and publish. and I'm going to come back to this hiring workflow. And because that job was not locked to the template, and I did not select a workflow template, I chose to clone it from that existing job, it is still an unlocked position with that exact workflow that I had in that previous job.
Cool beans, thank you. So it looks like the questions are still coming in. We still have quite a bit of activity, which is great. Couple of questions on how these workflow helpers actually look when you're moving a candidate through the process. Can you just talk a little bit about what they look like internally as you're dispositioning these candidates and maybe put a good visual on that?
Definitely. So I'm going to come into, let's go into this Android engineer position again. One thing about the candidate side of this is there's going to be really no difference between what you saw before this launch and after the launch. So I'm just going to go ahead and upload a test candidate to this position. So here's the candidate for the Android position, Android engineer position. Again, I'm just going to pull this up into this new tab just to show you. Again, here's the workflow stages. Here's the dispositions. Again, hired and not hired. Now, if I come back to the candidate profile, if I come back to the candidate profile and I advance the candidate, you'll see here's my stages. If I put a candidate into that stage, you'll now notice this is an active candidate and I have all of the workflow helpers here. There is kind of one minor update here. If I move somebody into a workflow, sorry, one second. I did want to mention that if you move somebody back into the new stage, and I think there's something. Hold on one second. Sorry, I think I'm.
All right, take your time, John.
Okay, sorry about that. Again, it looks pretty similar to how it did before the launch, except for those verbiage changes between stages and dispositions. Workflow helpers will function the same way. If you put candidates back into the new stage that have already been advanced, don't worry, we won't automatically resend the automated reply to candidates. You'll have an option to do that. By default, it will be turned off, but you will have the option to turn that back on if you would like. But just note, by default, if you take a candidate back into the new stage, we won't launch any of those workflow helpers associated with that stage.
Awesome. All right, I think that's really it. We've got some great questions that came in. Some of these questions will go unanswered, and be patient. We'll actually follow up after the webinar today with some answers and some help. But want to thank everyone for attending. Really appreciate everyone's time today. I hope that everyone enjoys these updates. If you've talked to me before, our focus and our idea is to continuously improve the product, make things easier for everyone, make everyone's jobs easier, make everyone's lives easier, and ultimately save you all time in the long run. So your feedback goes a long way, positive, negative, whatever feedback you have, feel free to send it over to us at any point. We do take it very serious, and we improve workflows like we just did, yeah, so feel free to send that over. John, thank you for walking us through this. Appreciate it. And encourage everyone to attend future webinars. We'll try to keep them entertaining and as interactive as possible. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great Wednesday afternoon. Hope to talk to everybody soon.